Hello student, today I take up a new topic and its title is how India can reap maximum demographic dividends. So I will discuss in details, and the lesson plan includes what is the demographic dividend, number one, stage of demographic transition in India, a structure of the change in the population, how to achieve the actual realization of demographic dividend, impact, solution and the way forward, and conclusion. So these are the important headings that include our lesson plan, and I am sure this lecture will very much benefit you. If you like this lecture, please share and subscribe. Please tell your friends that this is a free channel available to all, irrespective of the economic condition of students. Everybody can avail of these facilities. So just share and subscribe. Now I just start the proceedings. Students, what is the demographic dividend? The demographic dividend means the economy which can harness the potential of the working population for the growth, for the higher growth. How much a country harnesses its economy or harness its potential, it all depends upon several factors. I will discuss in detail later on. So the working age population between 15 years and 59 years, and how, when the dependency load, when I say dependency load, this means that people below 14 years or 15 years of age and people above 59 years of age, from 60 years onwards. So whenever economy have lesser dependency load, economy of a country boost up for higher growth. So boosting of economic productivity, these are the important features. And one is boosting of economic productivity. Second is declining fertility leads to more work participation by women, contribute to the growth of economy, and lesser dependency load. Students, as you know, whenever there is a lesser dependency growth, this means that people start investing in human capital. People start saving, that results into capital formation, and which is must for investment in our economy. It gives a boost to the growth of the GDP in the economy. And finally, what you see, this data will show that how the census in India tells us the increasing population in our country. This one is that 2001, the population was 1029 billion. 1029 billion population, and now the projected population in 2026 for our country is around 1400 billion, I mean 140 crore population. So what we see that the population, as far as the population is concerned, the difference between India and China have now very much reduced. So next, stages of demographic transition in India. What are the stages? Now, there are two stages, and I will discuss in detail. Student, as you know, that our country possesses only 2.24% of the total land mass of the world, but our country supports more than 17% of the population. There is a huge bulk of population. Now, in 1900, population was 236 million. Now, in 2011, population was 1,210 million. And now, I have given you the data for the projected estimate of population in 2026, around 1,400 billion. So, what we see in 18, 19, 19, 21, there are four stages of the growth of population. In 1891, 1921, what we see that there was a stagnant population. When I say stagnant population, it means that the death rate was very much high and birth rate was very much high. So the resultant increase was dismal. There was a stagnant economy, a stagnant growth in the population because the birth rate was commensurate with the death rate. Now, 1921 in India is called the dividing line. Why? Because in 1921, what you see, that death rate and birth rate is equal. But thereafter, death rate started coming down, but birth rate did not fall immediately. So what we see from 1921 to 1951, there is a steady growth because of the facilities on medical front, because of the better standard of living, because of the growth in the per capita income. All these factors combined together resulted into the growth of population. Why? Because death rate was falling down. Now, from 1951 to 1981, what you see that there is a rapid high growth, while the death rate started lowering down very fast, but birth rate did not fall drastically. So the result was rapid high growth. And now from 1981 to 2011 and thereafter, what you see that there is a high growth with a definite sign of slowing down. Why? Because if you go back to 1891, what we see, the total fertility rate was around 5. Now in 2021, TFR came down to 2.23. The projected target, the government target was 2.1 TFR. TFR means a woman produces the number of children between 15 years to 49 years. The number of children produced by a woman is called total fertility rate. So what we see that the total fertility rate, I mean TFR, came down heavily since 1891 and now it is around 2.23. It is the level of replacement where the population cannot go down drastically, as we see in China. In China, what we see that once government adopted the one-child policy norm in 2001, the population in China started declining drastically, and so government of China reversed its policy in 2016, and now having adopted two children norm for a parent. Now it has again revised, and a parent can produce 3 children. Why? Because the population is very much declining, whereby the working force between 15 years to 59 years are very much in shortage, while the dependency load is increasing in terms of rise of the people who are above 60 and above, who are above 60 years old. So what we see in 2011, this data will show you, in 2011 what we see that crude birth rate was around, all India it was 21.8%. Different states have different rate of birth. In rural areas, what we see, it is 23.3%, 23.3 per thousand, and for urban it is 17.6 per thousand. Now in crude death rate, what we see, for all India it is 7.1, and student, as you know that this 7.1 per thousand death rate cannot go down. This is the standard data for even the advanced country of the world. So we have achieved the standard crude death rate of 7.1, and even in, if you bifurcate between rural and urban, what you see that 7.6 per thousand death rate in rural areas and 5.7 per thousand for urban area. What about infant mortality? What you see, for all India it is totally 44. In infant mortality rate is computed on 1,000. So what we see that 44 death, infant mortality, 44 death out of 1,000 live birth. And there is also difference between rural and urban infant mortality rate. So what we see that still this one 44 is higher when we compare with China, when we compare with Sri Lanka, when we compare with even Bangladesh. So what we see that on this front we will have to do certain important steps in matters relating to health sectors. I will discuss in detail later on. It shows that the birth rate and the death rate for different states are different between the North Indian state and Southern state. As I have already told you that against the target of 2.1 TFR, the Southern states achieved this target, and now the TFR for Southern states is 1.76, which is below the target fixed by government of India. But for Northern state, we have still to achieve this target regarding TFR, and particularly the states of Bihar and UP are still lagging behind. So we have to do certain things for the achievement of TFR in those states of Northern India. And total fertility rate, when we analyze the data, what we see that total fertility rate TFR is conditioned by the level of education a girl gets. For example, TFR for illiterate girls or women is more than the girl who have already passed graduate and then she was married. So we see the TFR changes with the level of education of girl or women. But it is heartening to note that since 2001, irrespective of the level of education, the TFR is coming down in all categories of educated girls or women. So what we see the change in fertility rate from 2016 to 2021. It is Odisha. It is one of the backward states of India. Now it is showing signs of improvement, and there is a reduction of 14.3%. Similarly, we see in Bihar it is minus 11.8%. Similarly, in Uttar Pradesh. So what we see, the total data shows that everywhere, right from Northern India to Southern India, TFR is declining, coming down, is irrespective of the economic condition of a state. Next. Now this is the data that shows that the difference between the crude birth rate for rural, urban and total. And what we see that total birth rate is 22.5 per thousand, but for urban it is 18.3 and for rural it is 24.1. So what we see that crude birth rate is coming down with the passage of time. If you compute from 1981 onwards, the birth rate 23.3 is higher in rural areas than the urban areas, 17.6 in 2011. Similarly, infant mortality rate is higher in rural areas than in urban areas. Next. Trend of sex ratio. What we see, the sex ratio and child sex ratio trends. What we see that it is computed per 1,000. So what we see that in 1961, it was sex ratio was 1941 to 1,000. Now it has gone to 940 per 1,000 male in 2011, and for child sex ratio it was 9 976 in 1961. Now it came down to 918. The aggregate sex ratio has declined in the world, but India, Brazil, Bangladesh, Japan, and Pakistan have shown improvement in sex ratio. Sex ratio in different states. What you see, the worst scenario is for Haryana, where sex ratio is 877 per 1000 male. And similarly, Punjab, 893 girls for 1000 male. And Bihar, Gujarat, UP, these are the states where the sex ratio is very much adverse. The best scenario is Kerala, where 1084 girls are for 1000 boys. So this is the, because Kerala is also a developed state, and so its level of education is also very much high in comparison to other states. And so what you see, the impact is on the favorable sex ratio. A structure of the change in the population. Remarkable changes in India's demographic arena. What we see, that population increased 4 times, more than 1.3 billion population, and now the projected population is 1.4 billion. I mean 140 billion population. The census 2011 confirmed that the population continued to grow, but the rate of growth has declined. Similarly, a steep fall in the mortality rate. Next. An important consequences of the rapid fertility decline is the rise in demographic dividend due to rise in the share of the working population, implying a fall in a dependency ratio. After a declining fertility, the share of the working age population increased, but after some time, the decline as the share of the elderly people rises. The period during which the dependency ratio is low, the period of demographic dividend. This is the window of opportunity. So the dependency ratio in India was 75% in 2001 and fell down to 65% in 2011. No, this is wrong. Now, the projected dependency ratio will be further. This is wrong. It is going to be less than 31%. What does this mean? It means that the workforce in our population now have risen to 68.4%. This is the total workforce. This means that dependency load has already come down. Now, the dependency load, which is computed by the total population of infant, I mean girls and boys who are below 15 years of old, and old persons who are having more than 60 years or more. So what we see, that in 2026, the dependency with regard to the old person, those who are more than 60 years, it is 4.4%. And for boys and girls having less than 50 years of age, now it is it is 8.3% in 2026, and for boys and girls having the age less than 15 years. Now their population came down to 23.3%. What does this mean? It means that it is not more than 30%. Now, what we see, the working population in its ratio is 69%, and this is called demographic dividend. 69% of people between 15 to 59 years will be productive assets, and this demographic dividend will not remain longer. It will remain only for 40 to 50 years. Thereafter, and this will not be an automatic proposition. What we will have to do? We will have to make them skillful so that they can get gainful employment. We have to see their better health. The economy must grow faster so that employment generation can be done to absorb the people between 15 to 59 years of age. Kerala and Tamil Nadu will lose dividend before 2040 because whereas the rest states like Delhi, Gujarat, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh will have demographic dividend around mid-2040. How to achieve actual realization of demographic dividend? A student, as you know, that demographic dividend is not automatic. We will have to do certain things to achieve the realization of demographic dividend. And what are those steps? Number one, in 8 demographically advanced states like Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Delhi, Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Punjab, and West Bengal, the thrust should be on the following: strengthening social and health security for the aging population, enabling older people to acquire new employment, innovative employment solution for women, work from home, flexible working hours, social protection for older women. Planning for a state where the window will close in a decade. These states are Karnataka, Odisha, Himachal Pradesh, Assam, Jammu and Kashmir, Uttarakhand, Haryana. The aim should be to empower young people, and the policy should be upon providing education, skill building, creating employment opportunity, strengthening of sexual and reproductive health program, focusing on the formation, delaying age at marriage, addressing discrimination with a continued focus on improving sex ratio on the birth, ensuring the safety of girls and women in public place, evolving support system for aging population and migrants. Planning for a state where the window is yet to open. And these are the states like Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, UP, the Rajasthan, because these are the states which are lagging behind other states of India. So the approach will be quite different, and these approaches will include investing in education, skill formation, education for girls, creating opportunity for skill building, ensuring universal secondary schooling for girls, addressing maternal and reproductive health needs, improving child survival through neonatal care, immunization and nutrition, addressing harmful practices like gender biased sex selection, son preference, child marriage, eliminating all forms of sexual position and violence against women, promoting gender equality, investing in a skilled workforce, greater dissemination of work opportunity outside states. Next, what are the impact of this demographic dividend. If not realize the demographic dividend, there will be burgeoning unemployment problem in the youth. Instead of becoming assets, youths will become liabilities, will cause law and order problem, resulting in rise in criminality. Solution and way forward. A student to invest more in healthcare to reduce malnutrition, taking care of infant mortality rate, safe motherhood and contraception or use of contraceptives. At present, the health parameters in India is far from satisfactory. Mortality rate per 1,000 live births in 2013, China 13, India 53, Sri Lanka 10, Bangladesh 41. So what we see that on the health front, we have to do certain steps that will give boost to the health sector. Instead of spending 1% of the GDP, we will have to increase outlay in health sector. Maternal mortality rate 1 lakh live birth 2013. This data shows China 32, India 190, Sri Lanka 29, Bangladesh 170. So what you see that on the health sector, our position is very much bad. We will have to come out from this morass. Conclusion: in order to reap the demographic dividends, following forward-looking policy will have to be adopted. Number one, investment in the youth and adolescent and children. A children in India consumes around 60% of the consumption of an adult, while a child in China consumes about 85% of the consumption of the adult. So needs to invest more in children and youth. Focus on universal skilling and entrepreneurship. More stress on public spending on health. Universal access to high quality primary education, access to reproductive health care services. Gender differentiation in education should be bridged. What we see in India, that when a girl and a boy study at matriculate level, even at graduation level, they are at par. The performance of girls are better than that of boys. But after some time, what you see in higher education, the number of girls start dwindling, decreasing. So we have to reverse this trend, like in Korea, in Japan, in Taiwan, in South Korea. So this trend has to be changed. Even the performance of Indonesia is better than us. So the differential in education has to be changed, to be bridged. Again, India needs to increase female participation. Now the percentage is 20.1%. Now in 2001 and 2003, the percentage was 34%. So what you see, there is a reduction in the participation of female workers. We will have to increase the participation of females at par with South Korea, where the participation is 50%, at par with China, where the participation is 45% for women. So incentives should be given to girls, women's part-time work for women should be provided. Tax benefit should also be given to them, as Government of India is doing. To address the diversity in the state, you see, since southern states are advanced in an economic stage of development, So a high percentage of older people are there in comparison to the northern state. So different approaches should be adopted to address the problem of southern state and northern state. The coordination between the states on various emerging population issues such as migration, aging, skilling, and urbanization has to be resorted to. By adopting these methods, India can achieve higher growth of economy like Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea, and China. So what we see that India is on the threshold of becoming one of the greatest power in the world, and so it will have to reap the demographic dividends. If the growth rate has to be sustained, the 69% labor workforce in the population is a golden opportunity for India to maximize its economic benefit by way of saving, by way of capital formation, by way of investing in human capital, by way of increasing the growth in GDP, and by way of making better human capital. As soon as you know, this dividend, demographic dividend, will not continue forever. It will continue till 2055-60, and thereafter it will start coming down. Why? Because the percentage of aging people will start increasing. And so the labor force, the percentage of labor force will start coming down. Then after some time, by the sheer dint of the accumulated wealth by the older people and by investing in domestic and international market, again the demographic dividends can be achieved. So what we see that once we reap the demographic dividends for the next 40 to 50 years, then there will be the sliding down. So India has the better opportunity to become one of the important power in the world like Japan. Japan reaped the demographic dividends earlier and became the second largest economy of the world. Thereafter, it was surpassed by China. So it is the golden opportunity for us to reap as much as possible the demographic dividend, which is very much favorable for the growth of India. Thank you very much. I am winding up this lecture. If you like this lecture, please share and subscribe and tell your friends that this is a free channel. You can avail of these facilities without paying even a single